What a beautiful morning. So now that I invited you all to sit, I'm going to ask you all to please stand as our flag is presented. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now you really can sit down. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today at the 2023 Domestic Violence Awareness Month press conference. I'm Bea Black, and I've had the privilege of serving as the CEO of the WCA, located in Boise, Idaho, for the past 15 years. We are a nonprofit organization with a mission of safety, healing, and freedom from domestic abuse and sexual assault, with a vision of fostering a community where individuals thrive in safe and healthy relationships. So it really is to achieve both our mission, and our vision that we come here today to let our community members know that we are here to help them if they're experiencing the trauma of domestic abuse and to assist in breaking the cycle of violence. We want to start conversations and work together to create change. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to Stu Hobson. He's a retired Nampa Police officer, and he's also a member of the Idaho Peace Officer Memorial Board of Directors. I also want to thank the entire board for allowing us to gather here today. It is such an honor, and I feel always so humbled in the sacred space. While special guests seated up front will be introduced throughout the program, I want to take this opportunity to say a special welcome to guests that have joined us this morning. The officers who brought the Boise, Caldwell, and Nampa Domestic Violence Awareness Patrol cars. Aren't they beautiful? Look at that. Thank you. We have heard from survivors that just seeing these specially wrapped cars gave them the confidence that they needed to reach out to an officer in their time of need. City police chiefs and law enforcement personnel here today, we know that DV calls are some of the most dangerous calls that you receive, and we are grateful for the lives that you save in doing so. Just on our hotline, our 24-hour hotline during 2022, the WCA received over 4,000 calls, of which 74% were domestic violence related. Our Ada County and Canyon County commissioners who have made it a priority to join us today, we so appreciate your support of agencies that are partners in this work, like Faces of Hope, the Nampa Family Justice Center, Advocates Against Family Violence, and WCA. We cannot do this work alone. As I was saying to Mayor Wagner, it takes a village, and it is humbling to see that our village keeps growing. Ada County and Canyon County paramedics and all first responders, we know that domestic violence calls are some of the toughest for your teams, and we couldn't be more grateful for the care and compassion that you demonstrate as you care for individuals in their time of need. And we also recognize the emotional toll that it takes on your team. Jeannie Strohmeyer with Nampa Family Justice Center, thank you for being here. We are so glad to be in this work together. WCA board and staff members, they represent the incredible team that I get to work with each and every day. So many special friends, including Senator Chuck Winder. We are so grateful for all the community organizations and service providers that have joined us. Within Ada County and Canyon County, we have 14 great cities led by elected officials who recognize their duty to care for the safety and well-being of their constituents. Each and every one of them has recognized that domestic violence has a devastating impact on their communities. And to help effect change, each and every mayor and city council in Ada County and many in Canyon County have officially proclaimed October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month for their community. The same is true for both our Ada and Canyon County commissioners. They also proclaim October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So it is our privilege to bring to you from both counties, as well as the cities of Ada and Canyon County, specifically Boise, Eagle, Kuna, Garden City, Meridian, Star, Nampa, and Caldwell, a shared proclamation today. As we read this proclamation, I will ask each of our county and city leaders who are present, after I read the proclamation, I will ask you to stand and be recognized in appreciation for their signature on the ceremonial proclamation you see behind me. Whereas domestic violence is defined as abusive behavior in a personal relationship that gives one member control and power over another through physical, emotional, sexual, economic, or psychological actions or threats. And whereas an estimated 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will face domestic abuse in their lifetime. And whereas a range of services and programs exist throughout the Treasure Valley, providing safety, healing, and freedom from domestic abuse and sexual assault, including forensic exams, medical care, secure shelters, court advocacy, counseling, child care, as well as case management. And whereas Ada and Canyon County and the cities of Boise, Eagle, Kuna, Garden City, Meridian, Star, Nampa, and Caldwell are important partners with the WCA, Advocates Against Family Violence, Faces of Hope, and the Nampa Family Justice Center to provide a safety net of crisis services and create a community where individuals thrive in safe, healthy relationships, we declare October to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I would just like to recognize the following individuals, if you would please stand. Commissioner Glenn Beck of Ada County, Rod Beck of Ada County, Bob Simison, Mayor of Meridian, Joe Steer, Mayor of Kuna, and Jerome Wagner, Mayor of Caldwell. I truly believe that together we can foster a community where all individuals thrive in safe, healthy relationships, and it's with your support that I believe that we can do this. Thank you. Ada County is home to over 525,000 individuals, and our Ada County commissioners get to worry about the health of each and every one of them. Not a task I envy them. As I mentioned before, our county commissioners have been very supportive of the agencies that work to support the individuals who suffer abuse and violence in their homes, a place where we should all be able to feel safe. Here to share why this work is important to him is Chair of the Ada County Commissioners, Commissioner Rod Beck.
That's okay. Well, thank you, Bea, for your work in coordinating this event. And while I have nothing against Glenn Beck, he's not a relation, and he does pretty good work most of the time. But anyway, it's good for everybody to be here. I appreciate it. Bea coordinates this event every year. I was elected to the county commission 3 years ago. This is my third event attending this event, and I do so because it is near and dear to me. And thank you all for showing your commitment of all of our communities in the Treasure Valley in support of those affected by domestic violence. And I want to give you a little story, a little personal story. There was a young woman that was my wife and I had befriended, and she'd gone through, and she lived in our neighborhood, and she'd gone through a sort of a pleasant divorce, if you can call that. And she had done a quick rebound, and she got a man that was really controlling. And it looked to me like, just based on his behavior, that he was going to could turn into violence, because he'd demonstrated violence to her 2 children and to her ex-husband. And after communicating with her, it was obvious that she needed a little bit of counseling. We sent her to the Women's Children's Alliance. Thank you. And after discussions with the Women's Children's Alliance, she learned that it was just a matter of time until this turned violent. And she listened to the Women's Children of Violence and Women's Children Alliance and those around her, and she left, preventing violence. It's especially meaningful that this event is held here at the Idaho State Peace Officers Memorial. Our law enforcement community, and thank you all for being here, all law enforcement. Law enforcement is a great honor to know and to work with law enforcement. Our law enforcement community sees firsthand sometimes, before everyone else, how devastating the effects of domestic violence and abuse can be. That's the thing about domestic violence. It's often something individuals and families deal with behind closed doors. Domestic abuse flourishes in the shadows. It flourishes when families and individuals keep it a secret, because reporting it often feels scarier than experiencing it. Victims often ask themselves, what will happen if I call the police? My children will be so embarrassed. What will my neighbors think? They ask, should I report this? Yes, I'm experiencing abuse, but not all the time. What about the good times I've had with my partner or spouse? They will also ask, what will happen if my partner or spouse is arrested? Who will pay the rent for the house payment? They also ask, what will happen if no one believes what I'm going through is actually domestic violence? Maybe this isn't abuse. When children grow up in households where domestic violence and abuse happens, it becomes normal to them. It becomes a trauma handed down from generation to generation until someone says, enough. We can never allow domestic violence to be normalized. Events like today's are so important because they shine a bright light on the issue. Today's event allows us to gather together and raise awareness on an issue that creates lasting trauma for so many families and individuals. Today's event allows us to say to anyone who may hear this, no, it's not just your imagination. And yes, you have the right to live without fear. As Bea pointed out, Ada County is going to pass a proclamation declaring October of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're going to do that in several weeks, and if you want any, we'd invite everybody to attend. Where? To shine a light on domestic violence. Elizabeth, can you raise your hand? Get the details from Elizabeth. She'll tell you where the details, where it's going to be held, and everything. We'd like everyone to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for sharing your personal connection to this issue. Your work supporting FACES and all those who are most vulnerable and at risk for domestic abuse is appreciated by everyone here today. And now I'd like to introduce a very special guest speaker. This is a young woman who has a story to share, which has led her in turn to want to help others in similar circumstances. Please welcome Tess, a survivor.
Good morning. This is so hard to get up and talk about, so I'm a little nervous. So I am a survivor of domestic abuse. My early years, some of my first memories are affected by domestic abuse, and I'm going to share some of those with you. So I grew up in Twin Falls, Idaho, and one of my most vivid early memories was of my mom and stepdad fighting, and I ran to my bedroom and hid. And I remember vividly, we had a pasture across the street, and I was trying to escape hearing the fighting and the ruckus from it all. And I was staring at this beautiful brown horse, and I can still see it to this day. And I kept thinking about what it would be like to ride that horse and escape. And in those moments of daydreaming, my mom runs in the bedroom, grabs me and says, "We gotta go, and we gotta go now." And so we get in the car, and as we're driving away, she's like, "We're not going back. We are leaving, and we are going to Boise." And my 7-year-old little brain is like, "But my toys, I wanna go back, my toys." And we immediately get to Boise, and we go to the WCA. And the WCA spoiled me and gave me lots of toys, so I was okay without toys. The WCA also helped my mom get her feet on the ground. They helped her get a job. My mom eventually went to school to become a hairdresser. And then we got on our own again, and we were in an apartment, and it was like a little haven. It was just me and my mom, and we were safe. And then, what do you know, my stepdad shows up. And within months, within weeks, my mom was so busy with her new life of working and going to school. My stepdad was around, and he, within weeks and days, started locking me out of the house, and I would walk across the busy intersection of Shinden into a local gas station where the store clerk there got to know me, and I was more welcome in a gas station, and I would hang out there because it felt safer to me. Thankfully, he left again, and my mom and I moved back down to Twin Falls. And what do you know, again, just like most victims of domestic abuse that are too afraid to really leave, my stepdad shows up in the picture again. And within months, my mom and I were in a shelter again. And after that, my mom finally said enough, and she filed for divorce. And there was such a wave of relief knowing that this man was not going to be in our life again. My mom then started dating a new man, and I actually really liked him. I thought he was very kind. He was fun. And we decided to take a little vacation, and my mom got a new used car, and we were all excited about it. And we decided to take a long drive to California. And we had a wonderful trip. And as we were driving back, things turned for the very worse. Her boyfriend started drinking, started getting very aggressive, started yelling. He was getting aggressive with how she was driving, and he ended up hitting her as she was driving, and so she immediately pulled the car over. And when she did that, he took her keys and he threw it in the desert and said, "If you ever do that to me again, I'll kill you." And here I am, a little girl. At that time, I was 10 years old, and I thought, is this going to be the day I die and the day my mom dies? Because I knew that he had a knife in the glove box. And my mom smartly on her feet thought and said, "I need you to go get the keys now." And as he walked into the desert and he's searching in the dark for those keys, my mom grabbed me and said, "We gotta go now." And so we walked along that highway in the middle of the dark, and we walked to the closest town. And we immediately go to the police station. And I can't tell you the wave of relief you feel when you are terrified and then you walk into this building and you feel the highest level of safety. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like feeling that feeling of like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. And we were taken care of. I don't know how we were taken care of because my brain is a little foggy, but I know the police officers took care of us so well. And I remember getting back home, and that next week, my mom and I talked to her, and I'm like, Mom, I don't want you ever to see him, because those threats felt so real that he would kill her. And I begged her, please. And I think it was the first time I really, really begged her not to ever go back to someone. And unfortunately, just like 7 times, it takes at least 7 times for a victim to leave, she went back to him. And unfortunately, she did, because within 6 weeks, he did kill her. And I found her as an 11-year-old girl, something no little girl should ever have to see. Unfortunately, my life has been surrounded by domestic abuse. I got into a relationship myself that was psychologically and emotionally abusive. And thankfully, I, like as Rod brought out, wanted to stop the cycle. And I said enough. And I'm so grateful I did. This is so hard to come up here and say these horrible things because I like to be a happy, bright, bubbly person. And these things are just very hard to speak of. But I'm so happy that I was able to say enough because I am a happy person now. I'm in a safe home, and there's nothing like a safe home. But when I think about who I'm talking to today, as first responders, you guys see this over and over again. And I can't imagine how heartbreaking it must be that you probably make calls to a home several times. And how hard it must be to see that victim struggle to leave. It must be heartbreaking for you guys. And I hope you know that your work is cherished. Because, like I told you, when I walked into that police station, those moments of safety and peace gives you hope. And I wanted to read this quote to you about hope. Hope is the ability to see that there's light despite all the darkness. So I want to thank you for your hard work, but mostly I want to thank you for being a light in a very dark world at moments. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Tess. It takes a lot of courage to share your story. Your story highlights the important work of first responders and how meaningful and life-saving that support is. Someone who understands from the law enforcement perspective how difficult these cases can be is Shawn Sopoaga, Deputy Chief, Caldwell Police Department.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. First of all, I want to start off by thanking Bea and the WCA for having the Caldwell Police Department a part of this event. I also want to thank Kim Deugan and the Advocates Against Family Violence, who have been great partners for us in the city of Caldwell, so thank you. As a law enforcement representative for the Treasure Valley, it is an honor to stand before you today and address this critical issue that affects far too many lives in our community and beyond. Domestic violence is a pervasive problem that knows no boundaries. It impacts people of all backgrounds, ages, and socioeconomic statuses. It tears apart families, shatters lives, and leaves lasting scars on survivors and their loved ones. But today, we gather here not only to acknowledge the harsh reality of domestic violence, but also to unite in our commitment to ending it. As law enforcement officers, we have the duty to protect and serve our community. We are often the first responders to these distressing situations, witnessing the aftermath of domestic violence incidents and providing support to those in need. But it is not enough for us to simply respond. We must strive to prevent these incidents from occurring in the first place. Prevention begins with awareness. By shining a light on domestic violence, we can break the silence and dispel the stigma that surrounds it. We must encourage open dialogue, educate our community members, and foster an environment where survivors feel safe and supported to come forward. Collaboration is key in our fight against domestic violence. We must work hand in hand with community organizations, advocates, healthcare professionals, and educators to create a comprehensive web of support. By leveraging our collective experiences and expertise, we can provide survivors with the necessary tools to rebuild their lives and break free from the cycle of violence. Furthermore, we must enhance our efforts to hold perpetrators accountable. Our justice system must prioritize the prosecution of domestic violence cases and provide survivors with the protection they deserve. We must ensure that our laws and policies address the unique challenges faced by survivors and that our law enforcement agencies are adequately trained to handle these complex situations with empathy and compassion. But our work does not end within the confines of our professional duties. Each and every one of us has a role to play. We must be vigilant observers, looking out for signs of domestic violence in our neighborhoods, workplaces, and social circles. We must not turn a blind eye to suffering of others, but rather offer a helping hand or a listening ear to those who may be silently struggling. Together we can make a difference. By standing united against domestic violence, we send a powerful message to survivors that they are not alone. We are here to support them, to believe in their strength, and to work tirelessly to create a community where they can live free from fear. In the spirit of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, let us commit ourselves to this cause. Let us raise our voices, educate our community members, and advocate for change. Let us be the catalyst for a safer, more compassionate society. Thank you all for your presence here today and for your unwavering dedication to ending domestic violence. Together, we can build a future where every home is a sanctuary and where love and respect triumph over violence. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little shorter. Thank you so much for your willingness to share, Deputy Chief Sopoaga. We appreciate the work that is done each and every day by our law enforcement community to respond to these calls. Our next speaker has been a supporter of our work for many years and a partner in helping us with outreach across our community. It is now my pleasure to introduce Chief of Ada County Paramedics, Shawn Rayne.
Thank you, Bea. First of all, I'd like to thank Bea Black and certainly the WCA and all of her staff, because we really do have a good cooperative relationship. You know, I have told my story about my strange connection to Sue B when she was murdered by her husband out in the foothills north of Eagle. And I thought about telling that again today, but I wanted to tell a little bit different story this time. And it's really related to how EMS gets involved on domestic violence calls. So the story goes back to 1992. I was a soldier in the United States Army. I was a medic. I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and was assigned to work the ambulance at the hospital. So we basically were the ambulance service for all of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the 101st Airborne Division. I had no idea how often I would respond to situations where domestic violence had occurred until I took those first few steps back in 1992 as an EMS professional. You know, on a military installation, there's a lot of stress and a lot of issues there, and we certainly saw a lot of domestic violence issues, including, you know, issues of it, when it got so bad that people would actually commit suicide, which was terrible and sad. Fast forward, to today. I've been with Ada County Paramedics for 28 years now, and Bea mentioned and Commissioner Beck mentioned how often we interact with victims of domestic violence, and it happens every single day, and it does take a toll on my folks. EMS is an interesting career in that people invite us into their homes or into their businesses or into their personal lives, and they're experiencing the worst day they've ever had at that point, most of the time. And it's a tremendous honor to have these people trust us. They don't know us. We come walking in with the uniform. There's an amount of trust that comes along with that. But it's a true honor to be able to care for these people and help them take those first few steps into their recovery and their healing process. We try to provide people with as many resources as we can. In a time where when somebody calls us, many times they're angry, they're hurt, either emotionally and physically or both. They're scared. They are embarrassed. I've heard that a few times. Because you pull up to somebody's house and there's an ambulance, there's a fire truck, there's police cars. Certainly the neighbors are trying to figure out what's going on, and we do our best to kind of keep that to a minimum. But it really takes, as Deputy Chief Sopoaga said, it's a village, all of us together, coming together, law enforcement, EMS, fire, the elected officials, and I'd like to thank the elected officials for the proclamations that they have and will be doing. But I wanted to highlight something that we started 3 years ago with Faces of Hope. So for the past 40 years, if we treated a domestic violence victim, most of the time we would have to take them to the emergency department. And our hospitals do a great job, don't get me wrong, but the emergency department is not a fun place to be. And for somebody experiencing a situation like this, if you imagine going into that place of sometimes chaos, crying, screaming, people busy, the doctors and nurses that work in the ER are understaffed and have too many patients to take care of, but they do their best. So 3 years ago, we started a program that if we have a domestic violence patient, that if they're not critically injured or ill, we can actually bypass the emergency department and take them directly to Faces of Hope, where they can see and be treated for their minor injuries, their emotional injuries, and take those first few steps to recovery in that environment and not in the emergency department. So a big thank you to Prosecutor Jen Bennett, and Jean Fisher was with her staff at the time when we created this. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to do this. Also from my staff, we had Mark Babson, Steve Cole. We had a lot of people working to put this together, including our medical directors, because this is far outside of the norm. So a big thank you to everybody. It does truly take a village to make an impact on seeing that we don't have people that are victims of domestic violence. So thank you.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you for your comments, and let me express my gratitude once again to you and all paramedics. In spite of all the challenges that your teams face these days, you're still there for the most vulnerable in their time of need, and we couldn't be more grateful. Our final speaker is a partner in providing services that our survivors need in order to heal. Kim Deugan has been the Executive Director of Advocates Against Family Violence for 14 years, coming into her role shortly after I came into mine. We've shared a lot over the years, and that includes an ever-growing passion for the work that we have the privilege of doing. Kim?
I always say that when I stop crying is the day I need to retire. Hello, and thank you all so much for being here today. Bea, thank you. We're all here standing in unity with the programs and services represented in our efforts to eliminate this epidemic. And it truly is an epidemic that is so very prevalent in our communities. It was here way before COVID was, and it's going to continue, which is a sad reality. This year, AAFE has the honor of celebrating 20 years of serving victims in our community in Canyon County. We've been witness to the many strides made to ensure the awareness and provision of services for those whose lives have been impacted by violence and abuse, but we also understand we have a lot more to do. Our mission at AAFE is to eliminate violence in the lives of all individuals. That is an extremely bodacious statement by any means. But this past year, through our services, we were able to provide 13,156 victim services within our communities. That's a lot. And when I remember when I first started, we were at 156, and I thought, wow, that's a lot. But now we're at 13,156. And this is only a small portion of those who are being impacted by the violence within our communities. And we truly are, though, staying true to our mission, and we are restoring the hope, we're encouraging the healing, and we're helping survivors discover their true strength. We work with courage, and we work with and encourage individuals to not just be a survivor, because you can survive a lot of things, but to step outside of that and to become a thriver in your life takes a lot of courage, and we're so honored to be able to be there and help them in their journey as a thriver. After my own personal journey to freedom, I dedicated myself and my passions to serving the survivors. And I want to take just a small, brief minute and speak to those who are currently on their journey to freedom. We understand it's often scary and very lonely. One of the most difficult aspects of healing is letting go of the version of yourself that you became in order to survive. This version of yourself, it may have been necessary to get you through the experience, but it is not the version of yourself that you can continue to be in order to move forward. It can be a double-edged sword, because in order to get through the war, you had to create someone new. However, once you've won that war and are in a healing phase, you must let go of that person and leave them behind. It can be a daunting task to let go of the version of yourself that you became so accustomed to being, but it's necessary for the growth and healing that needs to take place in your life. Remember, healing is a process, and it does take time, and it takes the entire village, and we're all here together to help you on your journey. But with the patience, self-compassion, and dedication to who you want to become, you can move forward, and you can create a new version of yourself that is authentic and true to who you really, truly are. There are many programs and services represented here today, and please know that we are all here to assist you in your journey to freedom. We stand united in the elimination of violence in our communities, and it really does take the entire village. So thank you, each and every one of you, for being here today and taking that stand with us to say enough is enough. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you for everything that you and your team do to support victims and survivors on their road to thriving. It is a journey. To all of you here, thank you for taking time to join us today to stand in solidarity with victims and survivors of domestic abuse and in communities across Ada and Canyon County. You make quite a statement. I'm humbled and grateful every day for the shared sense of responsibility and caring that I feel from all of you, as well as those who engage daily to care for the victims of domestic abuse and violence. Through leadership like we have, leaders who are willing to stand up and recognize that there is a problem and start conversations, we can make a difference. We all have a part to play. You know, I hear it all the time. This is such a special place. I've never felt anything like this. Well, this will only remain a special place as long as we are vigilant and as long as we care and nurture these relationships that help us look out for each other and for our communities. So thank you for all being part of that community. Thank you for what each and every one of you do every day. And thank you for helping lead us into a better tomorrow. So with that, we'll conclude our remarks. And for those of you that still have to sign our proclamation, please come do so. And it's a great time for photos and enjoying the sunshine. So thank you for being here.